Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on your location. I'm your host, Mark O'Brien, Director at CM First. I'd like to thank very much to CA Broadcom and the community for hosting today's webinar, which is featuring CA Live API Creator. Today's community webcast features several topics. In order, they're going to be, we got a lot of information about the upcoming 10th conference in 5 weeks. And then Broadcom, the senior product leader, has got some advice on that. And then we're going to give you a brief tour and demo of this API solution for the IBMI. Also, a little housekeeping. Please remember, if you've got any questions, if you look over on the console on the right, you can place questions into that dashboard, and we'll use them at the Q&A session, which will follow Renu's talk on APIs. So now for today's topics, Christoph Heinrich, who is the co-president of the Worldwide User Group, will talk about the latest conference developments. Please take it away, Christoph.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, I'd like to share some information with you about the upcoming 10th Worldwide User Conference, which takes place in Fort Lauderdale from April 28th to May 2nd. You can also find latest information about the conference on the conference website, plex2e.com. And also please join the mailing list so you always get the latest updates as they come out. The conference takes place at the Hotel Baha Mar in Fort Lauderdale. Beautiful location right at the beach, very easy to get to. It's only 3 miles from Fort Lauderdale International Airport or 30 miles from Miami International Airport. So it should be easy to fly in from anywhere in the world. And I think at this time of the year, we shouldn't have any problems with hurricanes and flooded hotels and things like that. So quick view about the conference. We start on Sunday evening, 7 p.m. with a pre-conference meetup, just a social gathering to get together, and then kick things off Monday morning with the training day. We have sessions or trainings planned for Plex 2E around DevOps and API development. Tuesday, the conference starts with keynotes, and we have 3 session tracks. Typically, we have a track for 2E, one for Plex, and one for different things like different technologies or success stories, also Spanish-speaking sessions on track number 3. And then Wednesday, May 1st, the second day of the conference, again, interesting keynotes, 3 session tracks. And Thursday morning, we have the deep dives until noon, different topics around platform migration, about low-code development, about security, very interesting topics where we go deeper into those. Again, on plex2e.com, you can find out all the details about the sessions. Also, at this point, I'd like to thank all the conference sponsors. We have actually, I think we have more sponsors, more companies sponsoring this conference than we had in previous years. So these companies make it possible for us to put up this conference and also to keep the cost very low for the attendees. And so, of course, we have Broadcom sponsoring, we have CM First. New this year is IBM sponsoring the conference. We're pretty excited about that too. And then also SPH from Germany and Futura Sistemi from Italy are new sponsors. And then, of course, we have the long-term partners and companies that have sponsored the conference many times before, like Axos, Axon Ivy, Hawkbridge, Sodisa, and of course, Websidian. So thanks to the sponsors, they will be at the conference, or most of them will be at the conference. Go talk to them, find out what news they have and what kind of solutions they provide. So why should you, or why do you have to attend, really? So we have, like I said, we have interesting keynotes from both Broadcom and IBM. We'll hear about product roadmaps and futures. You can hear it firsthand from Broadcom about Plex and 2E. And then we'll hear about 2 very interesting solutions for the IBMI. One is the CA Live API Creator. We'll hear a little bit more about that today on the webinar as well. And then from IBM, we'll hear about IBM Guardium, and a security solution for the IBMI. And then from CM First, we'll have some news around business rules analysis and Plex, CA Plex model documentation. And like I said, we have 3 session tracks, so you might want to send more than 1 people to the conference to cover all the content. And then free training on Monday, free deep dives on Thursday, the last day of the conference. And of course, as always, it's a great opportunity to network with your peers, with partners, with Broadcom. And then last but not least, we have entertainment. We have a couple fun things planned in the evenings during the conference. And all this for only $3.99 at the discounted price until April 1st. After April 1st, it's going to be $4.99. And we also offer group discounts. If you send a group of 4, you only have to pay for 3. So to sign up, go to the conference website, plex2e.com. You can sign up for the conference. You can also sign up for the trainings on Monday and for the deep dives on Thursday. And also you can book the hotel directly through this website at the discounted conference price. And if you're still on the fence about coming to the conference, there's also this. Just the weekend before the conference in downtown Fort Lauderdale, there's the Taste the Islands experience. I hear it's a wonderful event with food and music from the Caribbean. So I hope to see you at the conference in April. And with this, I'll give it back to you, Mark.
Great, thanks, Christoph. I'd now like to go to our first poll question, which is, how familiar with APIs are you? I'd like each of our audience members, we have quite a few online right now, to select one of the 4 responses. One is I know/use SOAP APIs. I know or use RESTful APIs. You know both SOAP and API, or you know little or nothing about APIs. Organizers and panelists are not to vote, just the audience attendees. Okay, could we see the results? Here we go. So actually, the audience is kind of bifurcated. We've got 42% that use and know about SOAP and RESTful APIs, and then 38% really know very little about them, and then about 10% each are either SOAP or RESTful APIs. So that should be a good warm up for you, Renu. We've got a knowledgeable audience as well as people that are really at the beginning stages of looking at APIs. So with that, I'd like to turn, our next slide is going to be Diraj Rahad, who's the Senior Product Manager for both the CA2E and CA Plex product lines from Broadcom. And this is your opening slide. Thank you, Diraj.
Yep, and if I need to go next, do I need to tell you or do I have the control?
No, we're going to do the controls for you.
Sure, thank you. All right, thank you very much and welcome to the webinar today. And with what Christoph spoke of some time back, really exciting things happening at the conference. And I'm sure you took a lot of notes when the why attend slide was going on. So, and Broadcom is really excited to be associated with the upcoming conference and support CM First in this endeavor in talking about bringing the community together for CA Plex and 2E. If we can go to the next slide, please, Mark, and
yes,
hit the disclaimer and then probably just jump onto the main slide.
We've all seen this one a few times, Diraj.
Yeah, if we can skip this and go to the next one. Yeah, I know the lawyers are always behind us. So
yeah, don't believe anything beyond that Diraj is going to tell you about the conference.
So at the conference, I'm really excited. As I spoke a couple of webinars back, that I have taken up this role of the being PM for Plex and 2E, and I'm really excited to engage in person with all the users that are going to be part of the conference. So this is a great opportunity for both us as Broadcom to engage, and also because there are a lot of inhibitions, or there were inhibitions which I tried to kill last time, and this is your time to learn about what the acquisition means, what Broadcom cares about, what's the future direction looking like, right? Understand where Plex and 2E fit in the broader scheme of things under the acquisition. Where all are the CA products fitting in, and how do Plex and 2E fit in? So this is a great opportunity to not only engage but also understand how these products are fitting in, and where do they actually fit in. And also, as part of the keynote that was there on the agenda that Christoph spoke of, is to look at the strategic direction, what's most important for us as the product teams for Plex and 2E, what do we care about, and then look at the roadmap, strategic direction, and the vision, and roadmap for both Plex and 2E. And then this is a great opportunity to engage and to know what's the future direction like. And most important of all, that I'm really excited about are the sessions that we are planning. And if you can go on to the website right away, you'll see some of the planned sessions up there. One of them is certainly, the hands-on. So by the time we come to the conference, we are pretty confident that a new Plex refresh pack would be available. What that means is we will do a hands-on activity of what kind of features you're going to expect in this new refresh pack. Likewise, on 2E, we do have a refresh pack, but that won't be out, refresh pack or PTF in the earlier nomenclature. That won't be out by the time we are at the conference, but certainly we will walk you through what to expect in the refresh pack for 2E. So Plex will be out and we'll do a hands-on demo, and 2E we'll more talk about from a slideware perspective, helping you understand what's coming out there. Then we're also doing a POC where we want to showcase what the freemium for CA Plex would look like. So we want to do a demo and validate what the freemium model for the CA Plex would look like, so that a non-commercial model for Plex can be out there in the market once we do the discovery with the users at the conference. And most important of all, what we're also looking to do, what's not there or can be seen on the slide, but at the very bottom, is that we would like to do a stack ranking activity, involve our users at the conference to understand where do you see us shaping the future of both of these products. And we intend to use the famous $100 bill activity to ensure that we get your stack rank preferences out there. So we are pretty active on the communities at this point in time, reviewing the ideas that are flowing in, ensuring the ideas are reaching to the right state, and we are ensuring that we do the precursor activities before we reach to the conference, so that we can have an engaging session with you guys to understand on both Plex and 2E what are the things that you want to see from the ideas that you've been submitting on the communities. And we also love to do an open house along with the $100 bill test. So that's what we are really excited about. Those are some of the sessions. There are a few more that are being planned that might make their way to the agenda. But at this point in time, this is what we plan to do at the conference. And if there are any questions on the chatter, I can take them, or we can come back to questions at the end. That's all I had for today. Mm-hmm. Really excited to see you guys at the conference.
Thank you, Duraj. This is Duraj's first conference, and I think you'll look forward to having an excellent time. There'll be a number of Broadcom staff people there, product people, as well as support people, and then our next speaker will be having some people there too, because APIs is one of the three really important strategic technical thrusts that we're going to have at the conference. So if we could advance to the next slide, I'd like to bring up another, our second poll question. Just based on everything that you've heard this morning, now you didn't hear about the IBM security keynote, but that is one of the keynotes. We have two other speakers planned, including one who is an expert on technical debt and legacy modernization, and actually was the lead architect for the Patent and Trademark Office, which was a $120 million renewal. So in line with that, the last several conferences, we've had really good speakers and on topics, timely topics for all of us. So based on all these, please vote now. Which is the most exciting, the Broadcom roadmap, IBM security, this is security analyzer, and another family of suites specifically for IBMI, digital process automation. We'll have some exciting speakers on that. Legacy modernization, as I told you, got a secret speaker coming up. And then always expert techniques, which we'll get in the Monday sessions as well as in the Thursday morning deep dives. Okay, could I see the results of poll number 2? So far and away, Broadcom roadmap, the most important, cited by almost half. And then interesting, the legacy modernization, almost 30% people interested in that. Expert techniques always draws. I was thinking that might be number 2, but it's number 3 at 19%. And then security keynote and digital are lower, but are still very important and relevant. And you may change your mind after you see how straightforward it is to create APIs on the IBMI. From our next speaker, who is Renu Matwani. So we're going to hand over the conference control to her so she can control her slides.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Renu Motwani. I'm super excited to be talking to you here today. I'm the product director for this product that Mark has been talking about, Live API Creator, which I hope to be able to wow you with in the next 20 to 30 minutes that I have here with you. And let me say a little more about why I think I can perhaps wow you with this technology. That's because what I'm going to talk about is how you can get your DB2I APIs in minutes. And when I say in minutes, this is not saying metaphorically, but it literally is minutes. And not only am I going to talk to you about how we do that, but also demo to you perhaps in the short order of time that I have, and we can see where we need to go from there. In 60 seconds or less, if I were to describe this technology to you, I'd say it's a solution to help you create APIs and microservices. And that's very obvious from the name itself, right? Live API Creator. And when you talk about APIs and microservices, they're kind of synonymous to modernization of application architectures or any need for database or application integration in an enterprise environment. And before I explain further what the term live in Live API Creator stands for and how we achieve this modernization of application architectures in a unique way through Live API Creator, let me spend some time and dwell on this comment that I made that APIs and microservices are synonymous. Maybe I'm becoming presumptuous here, or maybe there's something more to what I said. So I want to spend some time on that, and please hold on to this thought when I said there is something more to API creation, and as the name says, Live API Creator. So what that live part is, I'll get back to that. So talking about APIs and microservices, why are they synonymous to modernization? First and foremost, APIs, of course, lay the cornerstone of a modular architecture. As we were moving from the web era to the digitization era, where the need for enterprises was to have a .com in their domain name to actually doing business on the digital platform. Like if I were to say digital transformation or a digital business is not really an option for businesses today. It's a business imperative. As we were moving away from that era in early 2000s to today, there was need for more and more systems within an enterprise and outside an enterprise to interact with each other. And APIs provided that common unified way for interaction between these different systems. So they essentially are the first step in taking that step towards integration, taking that journey towards integration and integrating all these different systems within and outside the enterprise. And that required a modular architecture. So APIs laid that cornerstone. But beyond that cornerstone, where the actual work happens, how the APIs are supposed to behave, that implementation happens in the form of microservices. So microservices help implement that modular architecture. As you can see on this picture on the right, that I'm trying to indicate that APIs are the tip of the iceberg. But the work underneath that tip of the iceberg, the actual iceberg, the logic, integration of data, handling of that data, all of that is the implementation, which is more like a standalone service in itself, which I'd call a microservice. And it's the very definition of microservices that make them suitable or that make them a perfect choice for implementing the modular architecture. And without going too much into detail, at a high level, if I described what those characteristics of microservices are, which make them microservices. Number one, it's the scalability of the services. Microservices are expected to be lightweight and easy to scale whenever needed, whether it's scaling up or scaling down. And that's the fundamental reason on how those were made the choice for the digital platform, where depending on the need, depending on the demand from the enterprise's customers, the services were expected to behave and be able to scale. Second, these services are expected to be operating independent of other services. They don't affect each other when there is a change, and they don't rely on others. They can pretty much stand on their own and go down on their own without really even knowing whether there was a glitch in the system or the rest of the system even disappeared in the meantime. That might be too extreme of a statement, but the point here being these services are expected to operate independent of each other. Number three, not only are these services independent, but because they are a part of the system, there is an expectation that they work together when needed. So they have to be loosely coupled, not so tightly coupled that they pull each other down, but at the same time coupled enough to be able to exchange data and information, and which is what APIs enable by having that standardized way of implementing and exchanging the information. And lastly, these services are expected to have singular focus. They do one thing and they do it well. They're supposed to have logical bounds. They're supposed to have those logical contexts which really define them. So this by definition is microservices. This is how we implement the APIs to meet the needs of a system, to meet the needs of a modular architecture. And why did I get here? Because I started talking about how APIs and microservices are synonymous to modernization. And when we are talking about that, we very much are thinking about digital transformation, or maybe we are already in our journey towards digital transformation, and which tells us that in our system, in our enterprise environment, there are some legacy systems that we are looking to integrate with modern systems, or we are looking to modernize them. So integration is a very basic requirement for modernization, be it with internal systems or external systems. We are looking to integrate with the modern cloud, which means we expect to have backends, application backends, which are web and mobile enabled. And in addition to modernizing our existing systems, we are continuing to innovate. We have new business ideas that need to get implemented. So APIs and microservices help us with integrating with different kinds of systems within an enterprise and outside the enterprise. And at the same time, the fact that microservices actually carry that implementation logic, that ability to handle data, they can also help us innovate by implementing the new ideas in a modern way. So where does Live API Creator come in this picture? This is modernizing and innovating with microservices. You can, of course, write your microservices from scratch through the traditional coding means that you might have, the existing practices you might have in your enterprise environment, or there might be some open source frameworks, open source tools that you might want to use. But if you are looking for bringing extreme agility in your environment, then the low-code microservices that Live API Creator provides come to rescue. Now I'll go back to the comment I made. Hold on to the word live in the product name Live API Creator and how we bring in speed and agility in the process. So let's take a look at that. I would describe Live API Creator fundamentally as 4 capabilities. I talked about Live API Creator providing APIs and microservices, but how do we do that? And those 4 fundamental capabilities make it a technology which enables your APIs and microservices through low code. First and foremost, it's the APIs that we can provide literally out of the box. When I say out of the box, these are point and click APIs. With a few clicks, you can get an API when you put Live API Creator in front of your data sources. In the context in which we're talking about DB2 databases, DB2 schemas that you might have in your environment. If you put Live API Creator in front of that instance of DB2I, you should be able to get, as per my claim, APIs literally out of the box, just with a few clicks, and I will demo that. And I won't try to claim too much here, but let's actually see how that happens. And the second part here regarding APIs is these APIs are instantly live. Once you create them, you're not expected to compile or deploy them somewhere. But the moment you create them, they are ready to operate and they're ready to enable and power your front ends. So essentially your application backend is ready at this time. So that's number one. Second, the way we enable implementation of these APIs, like we discussed, microservices are implementation of APIs through logic, ability to handle data, and integration of different systems. How we enable that is through the declarative rules that we provide, which is 40 times more concise than the imperative programming that would have otherwise to be done for implementing that logic. Think of this declarative logic or these declarative rules as spreadsheet-like rules. So much like in a spreadsheet, how you declare your formulas, how you declare your business requirements, and then forget about optimizing those or updating the downstream cells, the downstream functions which are dependent on this formula. Same is the case with this logic. You declare your business requirements. Essentially, your business requirements become executable, and the optimization and chaining and sequencing of all this logic is being taken care by the Live API Creator system. Again, let's see that in action. The third capability I would describe here in our bundle of low-code capabilities of Live API Creator is the ability to integrate with a broad range of data sources in the backend. And these broad range includes SQL databases, NoSQL databases, SOAP services, other APIs. And not only are you able to integrate your DB2I database, DB2I data with the other data sources that you might have in your distributed systems in your enterprise environment, but you can also get outside your enterprise environment and integrate with NoSQL data that might exist somewhere on cloud, or if you have some external APIs, external software as a services that you're looking to integrate your enterprise system with, you can achieve that using the integration abilities that we provide through this system. And not only is it all simply achievable through the inbuilt capabilities that we provide, but if those inbuilt capabilities are to be customized, we provide extensibility through Java and JavaScript. And last but never the least, when it comes to data, security is paramount. And we understand that. We don't leave security as an afterthought once those APIs are created. But you can implement the necessary controls right at the time when those APIs are created, when you model how that data has to be made available to other applications. So putting it all together, the ability to create APIs instantly, the ability to implement those APIs in a declarative fashion, the ability to integrate with a broad range of systems, broad range of data source types, and the additional capabilities in terms of security and the fine-grained access control that we can enable in the APIs is behind the power of low-code APIs and microservices that are enabled by Live API Creator. How do we actually do that? A high-level architectural overview. On one hand, you have your enterprise data sources. As I mentioned earlier, this could be SQL databases, NoSQL databases, existing apps and APIs. And on the other hand, you have your modern applications, web, IoT, mobile applications that you're looking to get access to your enterprise data to essentially be able to harness value out of your existing data. Live API Creator sits right in between. And this is one component of Live API Creator. I'll slowly build on this slide and I'll talk about the other components too. But to start with, Live API Creator has three essential components. What I'm right now showing, the API server, is the heart of the product. It's the engine that powers your APIs, that sits in between your applications and the data source and provides access to the applications through REST and by enabling integration with any external message queues. Like in case of DB2I, you can think of the need for integration with some external data queues, be it the keyed data queues or the normal data queues that you might have in your system in your broad environment. Live API Creator Server sits in between to enable that integration with external data queues and to provide access from the applications to the data sources via REST. So what does this have? It has the definition of the APIs that you would create, which will define how the data needs to be accessed, what is the format in which the information needs to be sent to the requesting application. It will have the logic for all that declarative business that I talked about, or implementation of security within the APIs, or the ability to integrate data across disparate data sources. So it has all of that logic. It has all of that call it the secret sauce of the product, or the essential differentiation that we are offering in terms of bringing speed and agility in the process. And this API server, it's based on Java. So anywhere you can run Java, you can deploy this API server. It's a WAR file, and it can even run as a Docker container, a standalone container of its own. And the very fact that all of this information that this API server needs and defines in terms of the business rules and the API definition that the developers provide for accessing the data, this can live independently in a repository, which we call an admin repository, which is not a database. So there's no dependency on any external data source, but you can store this in any source control system of your choice, or even on the local file system where you are deploying this API server. All you need to provide to API server is this location where you would want to store your admin data, the metadata, as I would call your API definition and the business rules. This makes it a very independent and a very lightweight technology that you can deploy pretty much in any environment and have it be that central point enabling your external and internal systems. So that's component number one. The second component is the tool. It's a browser-based tool for the target users for the product, which is the API developers. And we call this second component API Creator, which I will walk you through, because you won't see API server tangibly. It's working in the backend. It's in action because it's powering the APIs. It's enabling that communication between applications and the data sources. But what you would see is where I create the APIs, where I'm able to simulate the behavior of the APIs. So that's API Creator. And the third component is what we call Data Explorer. And it's a dynamically generated web UI, which provides access to the data running over the object model that Live API Creator creates. By object model, I mean the virtual layer, the data abstraction that we do for your physical data that can be visualized through Data Explorer. And essentially, it's a UI that you get practically out of the box, because you didn't have to create that UI. You can use it to visualize the data. You can use it to update the data. And in absence of a fancy UI, this pretty much can work as a UI for a back office application, or a way for you to prototype the actual functioning of your solution. And as I mentioned earlier, when you create APIs using Live API Creator, they are practically live at the time that you create them. So when you create them, they're running in the API server. And if you have to see a live end-to-end solution with the help of this data explorer, which acts as the UI, you not only have your APIs in action, but you actually have a front end also in action the time you create them. And I know it might sound too much magical when I say this is all available out of the box, and without making it much more abstract, I would actually get into the demo mode and show how this works. Summing it up in terms of what I'm trying to convey to you on why this technology stands out and how it helps differentiate in terms of creating APIs and also implementing them. It's primarily the speed and agility that you get in the process. You have low-code development tools. You get instant time to value. We don't expect this technology to be disruptive for your environment because it integrates with existing DevOps processes. And the other side of the coin in terms of what you get as speed and agility is the fact that it will help you reduce your total cost of ownership, because if you think about modernizing your existing systems or implementing any new business ideas, you are talking about a lot of development time. And with Live API Creator, you're essentially helping your developers focus on what is core to your business, which is actually solving your business problem, but all the grunt work that has to be done in terms of optimizing the code or exception handling and all the error processing, all of that can be left to Live API Creator. And that essentially helps with your developer productivity. And in case of DB2I-like environments, there's a lot of institutional knowledge that you would have to harness if you were to build on top of those systems. But by having Live API Creator like system operate in parallel with your existing legacy systems, you are minimizing the dependence on the institutional knowledge, but instead you are augmenting that institutional knowledge, and you are extending your legacy systems by at first integrating them with the modern systems, and over time modernizing by building more ideas, more business logic through the declarative rules and the other tools that this technology provides. So let's switch gears here, and let me try to make my claims real, and let me do a quick walkthrough of how we achieve some of these things in terms of creating the APIs or microservices can be done. So I have a short demo here, and I pre-recorded it to make it efficient for us. And I will stop from time to time. I'll highlight certain things, and I will leave some time at the end for you to ask me any questions or for us to dive deeper into anything that might sound interesting here. So what you're seeing right now, as these tabs might tell you, is Live API Creator, which is the second component I talked about for Live API Creator, the browser-based tool for developers to create their APIs. And I'll, in this video, also show you Data Explorer, which is our third component of the product, which is an automatically generated UI based on the API that you created, based on the data abstraction that we created for your physical data. What you're not seeing here is the API server, because it is running in the backend, powering Live API Creator and Data Explorer. So this is my home page, which is showing what all APIs I have in the system right now. What I'll do with you is put Live API Creator in front of your DB2I instance. I have a library with physical files, logical files, some stored procedures and views. I will point Live API Creator to that library, and I will create an API with you. And as I claimed that literally when you put Live API Creator in front of your DB2I instance, you should have the API out of the box. And we have to see how we actually do that. So I said we'll do this demo in 5 minutes, and this API should get created, and we should be able to do much more once that API is created. So here we go. So what I'll do here is, as you can see through the cursor, I'm trying to point Live API Creator to this library. I say I want to create a new API, and I point it to the database instance. I provide the information for the host, I provide the credentials, I provide the schema name where I would want to understand that schema and create API for, and I hit on this continue button. Remember my words, point and click. I'm essentially just doing a few clicks of the mouse, and this is my running API. So what this screen is trying to show me is the API that just got created, which shows me that this data source, this DB2I instance that I pointed it to, had 23 tables, it had 8 views, 12 stored procedures, 11 primary keys. So when that API got created, this is a summary I got for that created API. I'll get running again, but this is to tell you that while I was still talking and explaining to you, this was happening in the background and this API got created for me. Here is the details of the various tables that I discovered. And this is to say that I have a deep understanding. When I'm saying Live API Creator gets a deep understanding of the data source. It's not just a thin API, but I actually understand to the every endpoint level. And this is a tool called REST Lab built within Live API Creator, which is showing, which made a REST call to the API. And here is that API, how it looks, which is enterprise grade with pagination, optimistic locking, searching, sorting like capabilities all built in. Let's switch gears to Data Explorer, the other tool that I talked about, which will help us visualize the data. So this is the data abstraction layer that was created, the logical layer over the physical tables, and here I can visualize it. So I'll pause here a minute and I'll speak a bit. So what you saw in terms of this Data Explorer, this is nothing that I hand-coded or I did something special for. When you create the APIs using Live API Creator, you already have an understanding of the schema, what's behind the scenes in terms of the data relationships. Data Explorer just provides a visualization on top of that, while also providing you an easy way to be able to update that data. So consider this as an additional tool in absence of a UI that you would otherwise need to consume these APIs. You can use it for prototyping if this UI that you are seeing acts as good enough a kind of an interface for your back office applications. Some of our customers also use it as their front end, their actual back office application UI as well. So this is Data Explorer interface. What I'll do next is I'm going to implement some rules in Live API Creator. Remember the declarative rules that I talked about, and implement some functions, which is kind of implementing some logic that if these employees get a bonus, that should not be beyond a certain percentage, or I should be able to check that bonus percentage against the salary and be able to throw an error message or make updates to the bonus payments to the employees. So the typical business logic that you would expect in an enterprise application. I can implement that using the declarative rules and the functions that Live API Creator exposes. So I'll be silent for a minute or so while you watch this in action on how we are implementing that logic and how easy it is through the rules that I talked about, the declarative rules, spreadsheet-like rules. So this is all happening while we are watching. This is not a canned demo. This is in action, implementing that function. Nothing is happening outside of what you're seeing right now. A function was implemented. Now a rule is getting implemented, a declarative rule. And what I'm essentially trying to do through this rule is specify the business requirement that bonus should not be more than 50% of the salary. And every time there is an update to the bonus percent, this rule kicks in, which is the beauty of these rules, that these get auto invoked and you can see this now in action through Data Explorer. So for one of the records here, what we'll do is we'll specify the percent raise. To start with, I'll specify 26%, and you would see that the bonus value got updated. Now next, I'll specify another 25% of raise in the bonus, and it should ideally result into an error, because my validation rule was that the bonus percent should not be more than 50% of the salary. I already implemented 26% of raise, and then I did 25%, so that led to a error message. It's not important for me to talk about what that specific error was and how it got invoked, but what is important is that I'm trying to highlight how easy it was to implement a business rule and how easy was it for us to visualize all of that in action, which is where the speed and agility claims that I was making about how Live API Creator enables in your system. In addition to this, we also make it easy to shape the APIs. So what you saw right now was an API that was created out of the box. But what if this API does not meet the requirements of your consuming application? How can I shape it? It could be done through a capability we call resources. And through resources, we make it easy to pick and choose or alias any specific endpoints that you might want to show or not show in your final API. So as I'm speaking, you can see this is all being done through point and click, and this is now your resource, the shaped API, which shows that some of the fields that I deselected are now not visible in the final API. So this also helps with joining different tables, and in case of multiple data sources you might have, it also helps join those, integrate those multiple data sources, leading to multi-DB APIs, which is like creating wrapper APIs, not just for your DB2I data, but any other data that you might have in your enterprise system or on the cloud that you might want to integrate with and have combined wrapper APIs for. What now I'm trying to show here is an ability which is important for me to highlight in Live API Creator, which is the built-in support for data queues. These could be external message queues such as AMQP, it could be RabbitMQ in case of DB2I, it could be your keyed or normal data queues. And with a couple lines of code, you would see here how I'm able to receive a message and send a message to the data queue, which means how your existing DB2I applications, your RPG programs, or your COBOL programs can be integrated with the external data queues. So let's take a look at what actually is behind the implementation of this integration. So I specify the parameters that might have to be passed to this particular data queue, the message, the payload that gets created, and how that gets published. So this is a few lines of code, also templatized, not expecting the developer to write those things. And you can see that this message got printed to your external data queue. Lastly, we also have support for creating APIs for your RPG programs. You can implement functions to call your RPG programs. Essentially, what that would mean is these functions, which is another construct that we provide in Live API Creator, they get exposed as APIs. And what it would mean is your RPG programs can also now be accessed as APIs through other consuming applications or for integrating with any other modern applications. What you saw here was a RPG program that resulted into first name, last name, and age message that was consumed as an API. In summary, what I did here for you was I created an API. I showed you an easy way to visualize it using Data Explorer. We looked at how easy it was to shape the APIs, the integration with data queues, and most importantly, the declarative rules, which we saw just one rule here, but there is a bunch of different rules which help implement validation and which make your code, the entire logic for implementing the APIs, a lot more concise and a lot more powerful by making your live API creator system take a lot of this grunt work. So when should you be thinking about live API creator? Of course, when you're thinking about APIs for your DB2 assets, your data and applications, or if you are thinking of integrating your data and applications with other distributed systems you might have in your environment, or there is also a need for creating new business logic to augment your existing applications, or over time be able to completely redo those applications in a modern way. Live API Creator provides you those tools, not just APIs, but also a way to implement your logic and have those applications be ready for you. If you're interested in evaluating the technology, even before you actually get your hands-on at the conference, because we have a full hands-on session at the Plex and 2E conference where you can actually bring your data. I would encourage you to bring your use cases and see Live API Creator in action. We would work with you to actually put Live API Creator in front of your data and see your APIs working, see a small mini modernized system just in that lab. And if you're before that curious and you would want to try out the product, you can download this a free copy for Live API Creator from this URL here. And beyond that, for any questions and comments, my information is here. I will be sending out these slides and also a scripted version of the video that I just shared for the demo after this webinar. And with that, I will turn back to you, Mark, if you were to open up for any questions.
Yes, thank you very much, Renu. That was a very thorough demo and a really good, concise technical overview, and with some business value there as well too. At this point, I'd like to pop. We have a couple of questions. Thank you. So one question that came in from the audience was related to the conference, Christoph. They're asking about whether they're going to need a copy of Plex or VMware to be installed for the training on Monday. Could you address that?
So what we've done in previous conferences before, if you sign up for those trainings, the trainer will reach out to you with any prerequisites. Typically, we've provided an image with all the software on it that you need, and all you need to do is install that image. But yeah, more specific information you'll get from the trainer once you sign up for the actual training.
Okay, so that's a good point. So what Christoph is referring to is when you register for the conference, there are a number of sessions and other things. The Eventbrite site will ask you, what do you want to do on Monday? Do you want to train on Plex or 2E? And then ask you about some of the specific conferences on Tuesday and Wednesday, some of the specific sessions. And then it will also ask you on Thursday morning, there are going to be one of 3 different tracks, deep dive tracks available for you as well too. So once you get your conference ticket, you'll actually have, you'll be in on several different sessions. Other people have asked us about a spouse. If you have a spouse or partner rate, which doesn't get you into the technical aspects, but entitles you to any of the evening activities and some of the other things that we have planned, special events that we have planned for you, and that's $99 for another person to come along, and and then you can share your travel arrangements with them as well too. And the ordering is just a one-touch process. Last time we had a lot of problems with the hotel. This time it's really easy. They have a pre-negotiated rate that's pretty good. We just reserved another block of rooms for that too. So anyway, if you have any problems, whatever, just reach out to me or Christoph on that. And then, as Renu said, she'll make a copy of her part of the presentation. After another person is asking about the recording of the webinar and wants to save it and show it to the colleagues. So there's 2 ways to get there. everybody who's on this webinar will receive in another day, or it takes a day or so for it to get compiled, and sometimes we'll edit it just for conciseness and flow. We'll send that out to every single person who's on, who registered and attended the conference today. And then your colleagues can go back in and register on the site if they want, and then they will get a copy as well too after the fact. So that stays up for, I think, for 45 or 60 days or so after that. One technical question I had for you, Renu, is if somebody wants to find out more detail or data sheet type of information about Live API Creator, where would they go?
So they can go to Broadcom's website. They can look for Live API Creator, and they should be able to get to the data sheet. And if for whatever reason anybody is stuck, you have my email ID in the slide deck. I'd be happy to guide you.
Great. Okay, that concludes our webinar. We have a last poll question for everyone, which is called Mint. So M is if you're interested in having a meeting about more of what any of our speakers talked about today. I is that you'd like more information. Just check on that. We'll follow up. Many of you indicate that you want to get on the newsletter. We'll make sure that if you're already on it, that you don't get double emails on that. And then T is that you're not the right person, but there's somebody else in your company that we should be talking to about one of the solutions we talked today. So just give people a few more seconds to vote on that. And I want to thank you very much for your time. We're right up on 11 o'clock. Thank my panelists and Christoph, Diraj, and Renu, and also the people behind the scenes that help make this work so well. So can we show the poll question now to show the results? There we go. So yes, obviously the newsletter is always the most popular one. And then we'll be following up with some of the people who want to talk to other people in the company as well as that. So thank you very much for your time. And I hope to see many of you, if not all of you, at the 10th conference. Thanks.